the shofar, a ram's horn. In the Hebrew month of Elul, we sound the shofar every day as a Jewish tradition, a call to awaken our hearts to reflect, to repair, and to prepare for the new year. It's the voice from deep within our souls. May the sound of the shofar remind us to listen, not only to our own inner voice, but also to those who may not think like us, since from each person we can learn. Let this day be the beginning of a journey of inspiration, unity, and growth. Historically and even ethnographically, this ram's horn goes back 3,000 years. Not this one, but ram's horns. It was used 3,000 years ago at the temple in Jerusalem, the first temple of Solomon and David. After that was destroyed in 586 BC by Nebuchadnezzar and the Assyrians, it was rebuilt and then redestroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. So this ram's horn goes back 3,000 years and has been used in Jewish ceremonies ever since. It is also a clarion call to alarm, to warn people of impending danger, and I blow it one more time for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I take it with me just to connect you and bring it back?
Thank you, Steve, so much. And may we all be blessed to hear you blow the shofar every year until 120. So it doesn't work. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you, teachers, for choosing the most important profession in this country. It may not always feel that way, but you are the ones shaping the next generation, and your impact on children and through them on society as a whole is immense. Thank you for your dedication, for your commitment, and for being here today, curious to learn and to listen. We designed this day especially for you, with inspiring speakers, meaningful content, and yes, even some treats, because you truly deserve it. But before we dive into the program, I want to share why this initiative is so deeply personal for me. My name is Nirit Friedlander. I'm a mother of 3 children in public education. Hate today crosses almost every field: politics, social media, even everyday arguments. I feel it personally as well, as a Jew, an Israeli American, and as part of a small minority in this country. I encounter hate again and again. Not long ago, it reached my own family. My daughter, who is in college, told me that in one of her classes, a group of American students openly said they hated her, simply because she's Israeli. They don't know her, they don't know what she thinks or what her opinions are. They didn't even stop to ask how her family in Israel is doing. She told me, "Mom, they don't know me at all. They just hate me." I didn't know what to tell her. And I asked myself, how did we get here? How did our public education system raise students who cannot accept others, who confuse morality with hate? This is exactly why I felt the need to create something new, a space for teachers where education is strengthened with truth, critical thinking, and respect. That was the seed of the initiative to establish the Teachers Center for Excellence, a center designed to equip educators with the tools, resources, and confidence to guide their students through an increasingly polarized world. And this is where you come in. Today is a day full of hope because you didn't come here by chance. You came because you care, because you want to know what to do and how to help your students in their most challenging moment. You have the power and the ability to be the kind of teachers who change lives, the kind of teachers students will never forget. Before I continue, I want also to thank Dylan, the CEO and the founder of ICANN, who believed in this vision to create Teachers Center for Excellence and supported me every step on the way. Dylan, thank you for your leadership, your patience with my endless requests, including the many late nights I kept bothering you, and for helping make this groundbreaking initiative a reality. Thanks to you, we have been able to create a day that I know you, the teachers, will remember for a long time. Throughout the day, you will hear powerful stories from people who once lived inside hate and found a way out. Loay Alshareef, a Muslim who was raised and educated to hate, but succeeded in breaking free from that cycle. Arno, a former neo-Nazi who fell into a hate group, paid a heavy price, and then managed to escape and rebuild his life. Briana Wu, she's a strong woman and LGBTQ rights activist, not Jewish, but she too has experienced hate. The message is clear. Hate harms us all. It crosses boundaries, identities, and groups, and it always leads to violence and needless destruction. But the stories you will hear today prove that another way is possible. So once again, thank you for being here. I'm certain you will enjoy a day full of surprises, powerful stories, meaningful conversations, and yes, also good food and great company. And with that, it is my honor to introduce our first speaker, Loay Alshareef, who was born and raised in Saudi Arabia and will share his fascinating story and his timely, vital message. He will be interviewed by Dr. Gerzov, a radiologist who, through his own self-study of the Quran, has become a respected and knowledgeable voice of this subject. Thank you very much.
To start this, I'd like to ask you, the star here, to give us your experience as a child. What did it feel like growing up in your environment?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for, I'm so happy to be here with all of the educators. But you guys, all of you can hear me well? Okay, so no need for the mic. So first of all, thank you so much, ICANN, and thank you, my friend Dylan, for this invitation. So the story that you're going to hear today is a story that I hope would give you hope. Would give you hope because now we are living in a very difficult time with everything that is happening in the Middle East and everything that is happening in our region. It sometimes makes people feel desperate, and I want to tell you that there is hope. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia to a very mixed family. My father was born in Egypt. My mom is born in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. So Egypt, Saudi, that's the best Arab mix you have to know. I don't know why, but because of my parents, so this is the reason. So my family were actually very open, very liberal. They were not the problem that I had when I was a child. The problem was education. And when I say education, is because the schools that I went to in Saudi, in Jeddah, where I was born and raised, were very religious schools. So just to put you in a very, how to say this, like the right picture, I'm 42. So at that time, talking about late 90s when I was a teenager, the schools in Saudi were so tough when it comes to religion. And now things changed. The Crown Prince made lots of great changes. But I'm just saying that, yes, I do remember that we were taught a lot of hate. And I went to a school that is called a religious school, like madrasa, to memorize the Quran. I memorized the Quran when I was so young, age of 17. I memorized the full Quran. And lots of hate were not only against the Jews, Steve, but Jews first, of course. First Jews, second Christians, third atheists, communists, and other people as well. So this is the kind of environment. So I want to highlight that it wasn't it wasn't because of my family or my house. It wasn't because of the Saudi family, my Saudi part, or even the Egyptian part. It was because of the education. Education is very important. This is why I want to highlight to you as educators the importance that in Saudi, the time you spend in school is more than the time you spend with your family. So what our educators tell us, I do remember that in one of my chemistry class in high school, my educator told me in 1999, my dear students, I want you to know that Vladimir Putin invaded today Chechnya, and they are the communists, the enemies of Islam, and they wouldn't do that unless the help of the Crusade West. This is why we should never believe that Christians are our friends because of what's happening in Chechnya. You might think that this is the chemistry class, but you know what? This teacher had the power to relay all of his hateful messages, and you can multiply that to so many teachers. This is where the hate comes from.
Did that just be in the chemistry class, or did it
Oh,
follow
all
classes?
All classes, of course. You have to drop a bit of religion. And by the way, you know how many courses of religion we studied in Saudi? 7 courses. Quran, Tafsir, Hadith. Okay, so Quran is the book, the Holy Quran. Hadith are the
sayings
the
of
narratives
Muhammad.
of the Prophet Muhammad. And then you have Tafsir, the interpretation of the narratives of the Prophet Muhammad. And
That
then
would
you
be
have
like later commentaries.
later commentaries. And then you have commentaries on the commentaries. And then you have the grammar of the Quran. You have seven. Now in Saudi, it's only 1 course. It's called the Islamic culture. So, but I'm talking 1997, 1998, 1999. And I'm really sorry to say this. I want to say one thing, but quite honestly speaking, with this kind of education, when September 11 happened, I felt indifferent. And many of us felt indifferent in the Middle East. Many of us. Like, why are people mad with what the 19 people did on 9/11? But this is what we were taught. We have to hate these people. We have to, so what? They are killed. And Al Jazeera convinced us that those who died in 9/11 were the victims of the white American imperialist aggression that they do in the Middle East. And we were really indifferent. And then we'll talk about how I changed and how I made September 11 a very special day in honoring the 3,000 victims who fell on that day. But I want you to know that many people were brainwashed in the Arab world and in Saudi Arabia because of education. So this is why when we heard 15 from Saudi, 2 from the UAE, 1 from Egypt, 1 from Lebanon, the 19 perpetrators, I wasn't surprised. I was like, so what's the point? Of course. Many of you were surprised because many of you in America didn't understand where that hate comes from. The good thing is that things dramatically changed, but it's a continuous war that we need to embark.
Let me ask you now, you mentioned the 19 hijackers. There is, I'll bring this to a Quranic reason perhaps. Towards the end of the Quran, there is an expression, there shall be 19 above the fire, an-nar. In Islamic theology, there is a huge fire. If you are
Hellfire.
a bad Muslim, you go into the fire, hooks are put into you, and you put back into the fire after you're given new skin. The point is that number was over 19. There shall be 19 wardens of the fire. Does that mean there really was not a 20th hijacker?
No, there was a 20th hijacker who couldn't come to the U.S., thankfully, because his visa was rejected. His name is, I don't recall his name, but there was a 20th hijacker, and he was rejected in the interview because he didn't speak English very well. I think this is all by coincidence, the number.
Okay.
But there was a 20th hijacker. And yes, so this is why Americans should understand that there is a difference between spiritual Islam and Islam that asks you to pray 5 times a day, to be a peaceful citizen, to be a citizen that wants to integrate in any community they go to, and radical Islam, which is a great danger, not only to all of you, but to all of us as well, to moderate Muslims. Radical Islam doesn't want to assimilate, it wants to dominate. Radical Islam, you really want to know the difference? When the time of prayer comes, I can pray anytime. I can pray anywhere, sorry. I can pray anywhere. I can pray in my hotel room, I can pray in a mosque, I can just have a Google Qibla finder, find the Qibla and then pray. Radical,
Find the Qibla, the direction.
the direction of prayer, the direction towards Mecca.
Mecca.
But a radical Muslim, you know what he would do? He would go to Manhattan, Times Square, block the road, and shut the roads down to pray. It's not a prayer, it's a show of power and dominance that we are coming after this country and we are going to take over. And they are misusing the liberal freedom that you are giving them with your constitution. And I'm not saying change your laws, but I'm just saying wake up and know the difference. Something very important to highlight as well. And it's coming from a radical who defeated, a Muslim who defeated radicalism. Do I need the mic?
It's better.
Okay, it's better. Okay.
Oh, we'll share it then.
Okay, sure.
Does that refusal to integrate, does that also come from the Quran, al-wala wal al-barra?
So, you might ask why you're still a Muslim and how could you reconcile with lots of verses in the Quran? That's a very good question. So, I believe if we look at Islam in its contextual circumstances, I believe we would understand that Arabian Peninsula in the 7th century was a nasty place. And the Arab tribes were having lots of coalitions with the Roman Empire and the Byzantines and the Assyrian and the Christians in Abyssinia, in Africa. So if you look at it in this context, I would understand why so many verses were hostile towards some Jewish and some Christian tribes, but that's not the case after the 7th century. So if you read the Bible and you take a passage that says a master has to obey his slave, that doesn't mean that we have to restore slavery. That verse made sense at the time of slavery, but it doesn't make sense in the 21st century. It doesn't make sense now. We don't have, but you have radical Muslims, by the way, who take everything in the Quran literally. So when the Quran says, God created for you horses, camels, and donkeys to embark, they say we're not going to drive automobiles because it's not mentioned in the Quran. And there are still people in some Arabian cities, they just drive camels and horses and they refuse to drive cars because it's not mentioned in the Quran. So if you put the Quran, or if you put the verses of the Quran in its contextual circumstances, you would understand it better than those who say we have to stick to the literal translation of that.
Speaking of literal interpretation, in a Christian context, that would be plain text reading, following exactly to the letter. What about this concept of bid'ah, an Arabic word that you'll explain?
So a bid'ah in an Arabic word is it's like literally means innovation. So it's like an innovation in religion. I believe that innovation, the bad innovation that our religion talks about is that, like for example, you cannot pray more than 5 times a day, or less than 4 times, unless you're traveling. But there are people who come with different concepts related to your relationship with God, not your relationship with other people. So with your relationship with God, we in Islam have to be so strict in the definition of our relationship with God that we have to follow the Quran literally on that, and that constitutes zero problems in any society. But your relationship with others, if you want to treat Jews the way that the Prophet treated Jews in the 7th century because of the geopolitics problems at that time, that creates problems.
Yes.
But your relationship with God, that for example you have to, you are not allowed to have any other associates alongside God, you have to pray, you have to fast the month of Ramadan, you have to go to do Umrah and Hajj. You cannot create innovations in that sense.
Getting back now to your early childhood or middle years, what can you tell us about gender identity? Here in Massachusetts, we have DEI, diversity. To my way of thinking, Islam itself fosters university, not college, but a single dominance of males over females. What were you taught? How did you learn? How did you behave in Saudi Arabia as a child?
So that wasn't really a big deal in my education. Yes, there were males and females, and of course, males are more dominant than females. But it wasn't. We didn't feel that it was racist, unless it's like it touches some points on like women driving and capacity to work, but that's not related to Islam. That's related to society and tradition. So it's not really related to the interpretation of religion, but many religious figures, they mixed culture with religion, and that created a problem. So when MBS came, the Crown Prince, he fixed lots of that, and he said this is not related to religion, and this is why women finally can drive, and they are working, and they are very, I'm not saying that there are no flaws in Saudi. Of course, every country has flaws, but if you look at Saudi Arabia now, and Saudi Arabia in 1998, I believe there was a big jump in that regard.
It must have been very difficult to sort of originally think your way out. My concept of Bida was introducing something new, a new interpretation of the Quran, like allegory. And I believe that was forbidden. So the Quran is, as it was then, interpreted literally by some Muslims. Did you ever try to question authority in this regard? Because you were thinking already out of a very, very big box.
Radical Islam doesn't accept questioning. If you question, you are allowed to question, and then you will miss your head. So you're not allowed to question, honestly. But when did I start to question? When did I change? That is the real turn point that I want to talk about. So 2010, I was 27. And I was working in Saudi Arabia. And I had an exchange opportunity to go to France to study French. So all the companies I worked in Saudi Arabia were multinational companies. So if you learn an extra language, especially a language of the company that you're working in. So if I worked in Siemens, which is like multinational German company. Mm-hmm. So if you speak German, you get extra points, you get extra promotions. So if you work in the Saudi French bank and you speak French, you get extra opportunities, I would say, or higher opportunities to be promoted. So I had the opportunity to travel to France to study French. The program it was called an exchange program. A host family program. It's a program where you stay with a family. At the age of 27, I haven't met a Jew in my life. Never met a Jew in my life. And by coincidence, that family turned out to be Jewish. And I lived with that family for a couple of months. And 2010 was the turning point that I started to question my radical beliefs, my radical ideas, because I'm learning a lot about Judaism and Jews from the source, from the family that I'm living with, not from the radical anti-Semitic professors in the Arab world that still spout hate till today on social media about Jews, about the Talmud, and I believe in so many of their lies. By the way, one of my favorite books when I was young, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. How many of you have heard of it? Yeah, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Jews control money, Jews control media, Jews control world banks, Jews control everything. And it was like, and there was a great, I'm sorry to say this, a great Egyptian TV series called A Night Without a Horse. It took a historical fact that the English came to Egypt to occupy it. That's history. But then in the TV series, it tells you, you know why the English did that? Because of the Jews. In the protocols, they were incited by the Jews to come to Egypt and to take the wealth of the Egyptians. And imagine what Egyptians or Arabs would feel like when they watch this. And that TV series was very well directly put. And it was it was 2003, 2004. So the turning point, after living with a family and starting questioning lots of my radical beliefs, when I came back to Saudi late 2010, I really had this inner battle between what I was educated with and what I am educating myself with right now. At that time, it was the boom of YouTube. YouTube was growing so big, and I opened YouTube. What do the Jews really believe in this or that? What do Jews believe in? What is Talmud? What is this? What is that? And from 2010, I became a different person. I really changed because I chose to question my old beliefs because of the experience that I had with this family. And after that, I started to travel the world. I came to the US, by the way, to do my my master's here, late 2011, in Penn State. I'm a proud Nittany Lion. So, and then I really became a different person, and I started to do lots of social media work related to tourism and history and languages, and yeah, the rest is history. But it was that experience that really changed my life and made me question lots of my radical beliefs. And if you do this with knowledge, if you find your exit from hate with knowledge, facts, and the truth, you would never go back. Because you know why? When people say, what about when you see lots of people hating you, I say, you know what? When I see lots of bad comments on my Instagram, that you all have to follow me after this, by the way. So when I read lots of bad comments, you know, it doesn't move me an inch. You know why? Because I always say, I've been in their shoes. I know why exactly they say this, and I have the empathy to change their minds and hearts to be better people, because I know how they feel. And this is why when you see the darkness on the other side of the river, you'd say, thank you so much, I'm not going back, because now you see light.
Thank you. This Protocols of the Elders of Zion is very important to know and understand how it came about and what it did.
Mm-hmm.
It was a forgery in that it's not true, but it was put together by the Russian Secret Service, such as it was around 1904 or so. The Romanov family ruling Russia was sensing brewing unrest, and the best way to handle that at that time was to blame the Jews. So they had them create this document that basically says the elders of Zion get together someplace secret every 100 years, and they plot on how to take over the world by money and whatever. This was translated into many languages, and it is all over the Arab world. That brings me to brainwashing and kidnapping. It seems to me that what happened to you, you got exposed to the outside world. Mm-hmm. And that exposure, education, is, in my view, the best thing that can happen to a brainwashed or kidnapped society. How would you help us bring us to that into the classroom?
So I totally agree. It was exposure, and exposure is so important. And this is why, inshallah, I'll get back to your point, but I just want to say that when this ugly war ends in Gaza, hopefully, my biggest project that I'll be busy with is to have, just like I changed through exchange programs, I want to have a broader exchange program where you take Arabs from Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, put them with Israelis in Africa, in a project, volunteering to help elephants or whatever, make them mingle. So when they go back home, when they hear from their schools or from their partners or from their friends, oh, did you watch the news today? What those evil Jews did? Hold on, I have a Jewish friend, and no, Jews don't think this way. No, what are you saying? So what
are you saying?
So this is the greatest thing that I want to keep myself busy with when this war ends. This is the greatest project. Now, inshallah, I hope this war ends so soon, hopefully. So what I would say to teachers is that please realize that students spend most of the time with you. Whatever you convey to them, they will take it for granted. I took what my teachers told me about Jews and Christians for granted. When a teacher approaches me and says, Loay, not only me as Loay, all of us, like all of the students, you know what the Jews really think of you. They despise you. If they give you a cup of coffee or a bottle of water, it's poison. They want to kill you. They envy Muslims. They do that. You believe in that. So teachers have a great responsibility of breaking this chain. And I want to say to the educators and teachers, engage positively with people of different faiths from your classroom. This is very important because even without them telling you, they look high to you, they look up to you as role models. So if you act in a way that is hateful, they will take it for sure. and they will take it as granted. So teachers have great responsibility in conveying subliminal messages to the mindsets of their students.
You just slid off on something that was fabulous. You said, and I wrote it down here, what are you saying? For me, I say, what do you mean? And I'm going to give those 4 words to all of you as a response to what you can use in the classroom without being offensive. When someone uses a slogan or you're in a situation where someone has done something hateful, you can ask that kid or an associate, another teacher, what do you mean? Now, I'm going to do a group thing here. I'm going to say, everybody, 1, 2, 3, 4, what do you mean? Let's practice it. What do you mean? Come on. What do you mean? One more time. What do you mean? You just ask them. It makes them think. What do they mean? Most of them have no idea what they meant. They're parroting it, and in my view, they're sort of adopting a cloak of wisdom because they heard it somewhere. And what you just said, what are you saying, is exactly that. But it's more focused to them. What you're doing is flipping the narrative and making them reflect and take ownership of what they just said. In that regard, we have many, many slogans going around, and I'm going to ask you to help interpret us some of these slogans. The first one is Free, Free Palestine. To you, what does that mean, and how should we respond?
Well, as someone educated on this matter, let me surprise you and tell you that Free Palestine was a Zionist slogan before 1947. I know
Before 1947.
Before 1947, the Zionist movement, by the way, before 1947, before the rebirth of Israel, the word Palestinian was mostly Jewish.
Yes.
And this is why Golda Meir said, I am a Palestinian, because at that time, the word Palestinian meant the British Mandate, all the British Mandate area of Palestine. But when Israel was reborn, that things changed, and the identity of the Palestinians became
the Arab Palestinians.
The Arab Palestinians came after 1964 with the PLO and Yasser Arafat. And
did it start with them, or did that come from the Russians
It
starting?
came from so the Russians are to blame, honestly. But I want to say one thing. Yeah, not related to any other conflict, I'm just saying, to this one in specific. But it was, the slogan, Free Palestine, was to keep it a Jewish land. Can you imagine that, how it turned now into something totally different? Now, what Free Palestine means, by the way, when I went to the Netherlands and spoke with Douglas Murray, I confronted many protesters outside the podium. And they kept shouting at me, Free, Free Palestine. You know what I said to them? I said, yes, Free Palestine. Let's all free Palestine from Hamas. This is something very important. So, Free Palestine, what the radical movement of the Hamas supporters mean by that is annihilating Israel. This is what they mean. So you have to understand history. It started with a Zionist slogan, shifted to a radical slogan to annihilate the Jewish state. It is not peaceful at all. Free Palestine is not a peaceful slogan at all. It's not a call for coexistence. It's not a call for living side by side. And I always say this, I believe in the right of the Palestinians to live in dignity side by side with the Israelis. I don't believe in the right of Hamas to exist or the right of the Islamic Jihad or the radicals to exist. But the Palestinian people as people, they are not all Hamas or they are not all the Islamic Jihad. So we have to distinguish between the Palestinian people and the radicals like Hamas. And we have to say that these kind of slogans are dangerous in the real context that many Americans do not know. Many Americans do not know what is the true meaning of Free Palestine, or the charter of Hamas, the watered down one and the original one, or other slogans as well. Because they don't tell you the truth in English. I'm sorry to say this. But in Arabic, their Arabic social media or their Arabic channels, they really say the truth out loud. that Free Palestine is or means one thing: the total destruction and annihilation of Israel.
You just used two words, watered down, or three words, watered down version. We had that in the Newton public schools where they didn't want to offend the children, the kids, the students, with the real Hamas charter, which speaks of killing Jews. So they simply took it out. So our students at Newton North High School, Newton South High School, were getting taught that Hamas was a freedom movement for an alternative political view. That was the watered down thing. And so we ourselves were helping and indoctrinate our students by not giving the truth. I have some of those textbooks later on my desk and back there if any of you want to see them. Next, what about Intifada? As I understand it, that was a word like a dog shaking off fleas, but then globalize it by Hatam Mazian in California. What about, explain that.
But let me first explain that you mentioned a very important point when you talked about the Free Palestine movement, when you said that there was a point that you said about freedom fighters. Anyone who thinks that in the US, unfortunately, and so many people do, that Hamas are freedom fighters, ask them one question. What kind of freedom fighting in kidnapping toddlers? What kind of freedom fighting in going into the homes of unarmed people and killing them and lynching them and taking them as hostages? What kind of freedom fighting is this? This is absolutely not freedom fighting. And if you ever think that Hamas, a radical Islamist movement, believes in nation states, good luck. But listen to those who know from the Middle East, they don't believe in nation states. It's not about the land, it's about killing Jews to be rewarded. That is not being said enough in this country. And many people don't really know what Hamas really is after. It was never after a land. They were given, by the way, you know when Israel left Gaza in 2005? I know many Israelis who left Gaza in 2005. They left the greenhouses, the innovations, lots of things that Hamas could have built a new Dubai in Gaza.
Including the markets for the fruit and vegetables in Europe.
But
that was the business plan.
They turned it into a battle zone to prepare for this day. And Gaza is no more anymore. By the way, I've been to the borders of Gaza with the Red Crescent of the UAE. There's no more Gaza. And it's sad that Hamas decided to be suicidal and doesn't take care of its population or people to lead them into a suicidal operation like October 7th. So I just had to say this. For the Intifada in Arabic is a shake. So if I, for example, like, I'm just trying to make it easy for you to understand, to our audience. Like, if you have a jump scare, you see when you do the jump scare, this is Intifada. So Intifada had a different meaning in Arabic, which is an uprising, but it's not a normal uprising. It's a violent uprising. History is so important. You need to look at the history of the word Intifada when it became into a reality, when it became reality, and look at the events. It started in 2001 or 2002. Suicide bombings, bus bombings, many bombings that took place in Israel. So globalized Intifada means go after the Israelis wherever they are and kill them. That is the meaning of, by the way, Israelis/Jews. 2 days ago in Greece, or maybe yesterday in Greece, a group of Israelis were attacked. That is globalized Intifada. A Jewish French was killed a couple of weeks ago. That is globalized Intifada. So globalized Intifada is a very violent slogan that many people in the West do not understand. This is why if you have questions about what these slogans really mean, ask people from the region. Don't ask the pro-Hamas supporters. They will tell you, no, it's about freedom fighting, it's about creating a state. Of course, by the way, when the pro-Hamas supporters say, Our struggle is about creating a state. They are not completing the sentence. We want to create a state and annihilate Israel, of course, annihilate Israel through the Jews off the sea, but we want to create a state. Why don't you support us in creating a state? They are masters of doublespeak. Doublespeak that many people in the West do not understand.
Like many times, Arafat would say something to his people in Arabic, and then the English translation, or what he said in English, would be totally different. I'll just add one or two more things about leaving Gaza. Hamas decided to use rockets. Where would they get the body of the rocket? Europe, the EU, had donated $300 million over the years to Gaza for a water irrigation system, not just for crops, but also for fresh water for homes. Hamas dug up those $300 million worth, retooled them, and they became, in cut lengths, the rockets that they were using to send. So if there's no more water in Gaza or sections of it, that's part of the problem. The other thing in the word Palestinian, it was given to that area by the Romans because they were thinking of the Philistines, the worst enemy of the Jews that the Romans thought of in 70 AD when they put down the Jewish uprising. And in fact, in Arabic, there is no letter P as we have it in English. So in Arabic, Palestine would be Philistine. We've come a long way so far. Does anyone have any questions? As you're all teachers, you know that a question will have a subject, a predicate, a direct object, and maybe a question mark at the end. So raise your hand, ask me, and I'll repeat it. I see one hand over here. Yes?
So, practical question, because you mentioned for the teachers to pay attention to the religious.
Okay.
What does the teacher can do when he sees in the class a student with a Free Palestine slogan, River to the Sea, any slogan that is hateful? What is practically the teacher has to do?
So because in the US you have more freedom, thank God we are dictators. I'm just saying. So in the US you have more freedom to say whatever you want to say. For example, like in the UAE, when someone intimidated Jewish students in the NYU Abu Dhabi in the graduation ceremony, he walked into the Jewish students and he said, "Free Palestine." He was interrogated for and it was after 2 to 3 months of interrogation, that student was deported. I know it might sound tough, but because his intention was to intimidate the Jews. So this is absolutely intolerable in the UAE. If you notice a student doing this, my humble opinion is that do not confront, but maybe educate people about what these slogans mean in general to all students. Because you have to educate them, since it's an open space, you have to educate them what these slogans really mean and that they are violent. And use the help of your Arab allies who would explain to students or who would tell the people the truth about these slogans, because they are very harmful. And it's not okay, in my opinion, to misuse liberal freedom or freedom of speech to speak hate. I always say, I'm really sorry to say this. Yes, I believe in freedom of speech, but I don't believe in hate speech. And there's a big difference between freedom of speech and inciting others to harm different groups for their religion, race, color, or even sexual orientation. If you're spouting this kind of hate, I don't think that's free speech. That's my opinion, coming from dictatorship.
As a teacher, you're often surprised, taken aback by one of your favorite students, perhaps, coming with one of these slogans. What I will say again is, what do you mean? While you're thinking about how to process this in the moment, you've got other students around, you know this kid, maybe he's got some other problems, you want to speak to him privately, but what do you mean, or what are you saying, is a great comeback right then that flips it and gives you the opportunity to think what your options are, what you have available to you, what the principal would say, what your political situation is in the school. It gives you opportunity to respond in the moment and then think about what else you can say.
But I want to say also, why are these kind of political, whatever they are, political slogans are allowed in school in the first place? Why are they allowed in school in the first place? This is not... So this is not the right place. But if there is a free space, then you have to counter this, because it's very important to counter this, because many people take this slogan, and I promise you, they don't know which river and which sea. I swear to you, they don't know.
Before I forget, one of you teachers came up to me earlier with a problem of what was going on in his or her school. And I said, I hear what you're saying. I don't have time now, but I have access to other people who can do things. My name is Steve Gurisoff. I think you have my contact information. If any of you want to contact me, I keep it anonymous and send it out to friends who I know who can do something or will try to do something in your school district. Next question? Yes. Bingo.
Hi, my name is Sharif Michelin. Thank you so much. This is really great. So my question is, I got into a debate with a colleague, and it's an educational colleague, but I don't work with them in my school. It's part of our union. And I got into discussion with them because of the poster they had in their office, which was Stop Bombing Gaza.
Stop what?
Stop Bombing Gaza.
Okay.
With a woman with a European nose, with a head covering, of course, but she looks very European, but whatever. I asked them to take down this poster because I felt that it was offensive to Jewish people who are in the Union Hall. And they responded to me, and one of my reasons why I asked this person to do this is I said, look at Governor Shapiro, look at the violence against Jews, look at what happened in Washington, D.C. And this individual said to me, Israel and Jews will be safer when Israel stops bombing Gaza. And I didn't know what to say to that.
I'll tell you what to say. You have to show empathy by saying the war is ugly, the war is horrible, and I agree with you. Let's all put the pressure to stop bombing Gaza by asking the one who started the war to hand over the hostages so this war can end yesterday. So when anyone wants to put you in a pressure by telling you, let's stop the war, I say, absolutely, let's stop the war. But who started this war, reminder? Hamas started this war and took hostages into Israel, and they are still holding on to these hostages, and the Israelis are the current government is going mad because of their hostages. So the war ends when the hostages are released, and of course Hamas has to surrender. But I always say this to people. It's not about Hamas. Hamas surrender will eventually come. But first and foremost, the hostages have to be released. So if you are so angry, I would say, not you, of course, the one you debated. If you are so angry, I join your anger, and I join your grief, and I join your desire to end the war. Let's put our hands in hand to put together an end to this war by calling Hamas to release the hostages so this war can end today.
Also, in my view, there was an implicit threat in that. You will be safer if you stop. In other words, that you are not safe until. Yeah. The other aspect of this is that the enemy, the Hamas, tends to declare victory when they have been defeated simply by virtue of the fact that they have been survived as a political entity, and they have threatened in multiple news feeds to do this again and again. Sinwara said, we will have 10,000 of these floods. This will not stop. And so the end of this is the end of the Hamas ideology, the radical, and I try not to use that word. Radical is a value judgment. For most believing Muslims, for them, what they do, killing people, is conservative. It's obeying their original foundation text in the plain text interpretation we talked about. Another question?
Yes. Well, it's not a question. It's just a follow-up on. Hi. And going on with what Loay said. Am I saying his name correctly? Okay. 2005. We all know Israel pulled out of Gaza. Gaza is still part of Israel. So I'm going to refer to Israel as Israel proper. I was in Israel in 2008 in Sderot. How many of you have heard of Sderot? I might be saying it wrong. Okay. So, pardon?
You're good.
Oh, okay. What's that?
It's for the camera.
Oh. Hi. And 3 missiles came over, or 3 rockets, I don't know what to call them, came over from Gaza, past Israel. It was frightening. I'm sorry, if I see someone pull out a knife from here, then these were rockets. Israel did nothing. Israel shows great restraint. And if you look on Soro's website, you will see they have been bombarded throughout the years from Gaza, and Israel shows restraint. There are young kids there who are traumatized and have lost limbs. So those are things that I share with people who say those comments. And a lot of them don't even know what's going on in the African nations either, which is really shocking, but only Israel.
I want to add one thing very important, please.
Thanks.
I was in South Africa 2 weeks ago, and I was interviewed by the national TV of South Africa. Is really tough. All the interviews there are so tough. You know, in one of the interviews, one of the one of the news anchors, he received a call by someone from South Africa. He said, "You know why this guy is standing with Israel? Because he is white, and you are black." He said to the anchor. I was saying, this is like a Hollywood movie. Wow, this is South Africa. Hello. No, but I was asked a question about the same question about, don't you think that this war has to end, and this war and this war and this war? I said, first you start with showing empathy, because of course, every human being mourned the deaths of the innocents, not the Hamas operatives, the innocents in Gaza. Or else we don't have hearts. But we have to, so first you show empathy, and then you come back to the question of how to end this war properly. And I was asked on the national TV, but don't you think Israel is committing a genocide? I said, clearly, the definition of genocide is the deliberate act of wiping out the nation.
Intent.
Israel can do it, but it doesn't. Hamas wants to do it, but it can't. That's the difference. So you have to have these punchlines back of your head before you talk with someone who tells you about the war, showing empathy first, and then double down second.
The key word in English there is intent, and Israel has no intent. I just mentioned something about, quote, starvation in Gaza. There is, but there are only very few people who are starving. One of them is Aviatar David, who is one of the hostages. They showed a picture of him. If any of you get asked about what about the starvation in Gaza, tell them to take their most powerful weapon. I have got it right here. It's the index finger. Go to your cell phone and look up Warsaw Ghetto Children Starvation. That will show you pictures. Or Armenian Genocide, Children Starvation. The kids we see on TV are jumping up and down. They're waving pots, whatever. Kids who are starving, inanition, have no calories. They are listless. They just lie in the street. The other thing, from the pictures they've sent out, they've been of very thin children. They're Fanconi syndrome, cerebral palsy, cystic fibrosis, esophageal atresia, malabsorption, celiac disease. They've gone around, Hamas, to find kids who are very thin. Unfortunately, a lot of people believe that. As a physician, I look at these and I say, oh, that's not that's what it is. And in fact, when they showed a picture of Yatar David the last time, they showed him skin and bones, and you could see a nice big fat hand handing him a cup of water. More questions? How are we on time?
We're good. We're good on time.
I apologize, I have a meandering kind of question, so I'm going to start with one little thing and then end up with students and teaching. So my son was just on his 3rd trip to Israel with Excel Birthright, doing an internship. It was fabulous, really wonderful experience. But I do want to say that when the war started, my own son, who's in college in one of these radical colleges, he also said to me, what about these tunnels? Israel's making this up. You know, there are no tunnels. And he also questioned what Israel was doing. He had this observation I just want to share with you after these 3 trips to Israel, that wow, my education about Israel was really lacking, even as a Jew, even as a good mother who put him through a lot of learning experiences. He was missing that education. So now when he came back from his last trip, doing an internship for 2 months, and during the war he was evacuated and went back, and it was quite the experience, harrowing. His friends from New Hampshire, California, these places are all questioning the existence of Israel. Sons of senators, sons of, daughters of Congress people, and they're questioning, at the tables at Newton North, BDS is it balanced, especially with Jewish students. So I think one is Jewish education itself was lacking, but where are these kids getting these denial of the existence of Israel from? What does SJP have to be, what does SJP have to do with it? This entire propaganda about white supremacy, colonization, and this whole emphasis on how do we stop it when it's, my own child, was part of it.
Thank you.
I think that was for you, Loay. Here you go.
All of this brainwashing is happening on TikTok and social media. You cannot stop it, you can counter. So it is very important that your son visited Israel, because when I first visited Israel in 2024, November, you know what I noticed? I was welcomed with a missile from the Houthis. As soon as I landed, I was welcomed with a missile from the Houthis. You know what I noticed when I went to the safe rooms? That Israel built shelters because they care about their citizens, about their visitors, and about the people. Hamas didn't build a single tunnel for their people. And when one of their leaders, Musa Abu Marzouk, was interviewed, he was asked, why didn't you build tunnels for the people of Gaza? You know what he said? He said the tunnels are for our fighters. But the people of Gaza are refugees, and they are the responsibility of the occupation in the United Nations. Imagine a leader would say this about his people. They don't care about their people. And the fact that they don't care and they want their people to suffer and use this suffering as a weapon, it worked for some people in the US. Because people in the US are people with good hearts, and in the West. And they get this, what is happening? You see, this is, but they don't want to say, it's not that they don't want to say, they forget that on October 7, Hamas invaded Israel because of a catastrophic, huge intelligence failure on the Israeli side. And they made all of these killings, and then what would you expect Israel to do? Anyone who would say, what did you want Israel to act? Or how did you want Israel to react? That is a question that many people cannot answer, because they know that Hamas blends themselves into buildings, into hospitals, into schools, into mosques, and they leave Israel no option other than to take them out the way that they do, which is horrible, which is sad, because there are many Palestinians innocent who are paying their lives for that. But it's unfortunately, this is what Hamas is. And they are suicidal. They don't really care how many Palestinians die. They don't really care. They just want to use their numbers as a weapon against the civilized in the West to put pressure on Israel.
1 second. And they do that through our legacy media, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. When Al-Ahli Hospital was bombed, so to speak, they had immediately 500 dead, whatever, the hospital itself. Well, there's an expression, a lie goes halfway around the world before the truth gets a chance to get its pants on. That was supposedly Winston Churchill, but it may have been Mark Twain. Each and every rocket that is sent is unguided. That in itself is a war crime. The Israelis do targeted attacks where the bomb is guided precisely where they want to. Clearly in a war there are errors, there are mistakes. But the intent is to achieve a military solution to a problem, not to wipe out everyone. The tunnels, that's a result of TikTok. I'm sure he's had opportunity of seeing multiple videos, certainly from the Israeli side, with hundreds of how he assumes that, I don't know. Next question.
Thank you. So in the response to what would or should have done. I hear a lot of like two-state solution, and I know recently the UN had a vote where the vast majority of nations voted on recognizing a Palestinian state and advancing that two-state solution. And I was in the 90s, early 2000s, very, very liberal and very much pro two-state solution. I thought that was sort of the best way forward. But then in between 2005, 2008, when I saw that there was sort of this de facto two-state solution, that maybe that wasn't going to work. What about that two-state solution where people say, like, this is what we need to do, we need to recognize a Palestinian state? Like, how do you respond to that? And I always thinking like, wasn't that kind of tried and it didn't quite work?
Yes.
I don't know.
Thank you so much, Dylan. So when I'm asked this question, I say two-state solution is not a priority right now. The priority is finding a Palestinian leadership that is willing to do the following: accept Israel as a Jewish state, living side by side with Israel, teaching their kids not to hate Jews. When this leadership emerges, I believe that you will find many people who would support the two-state solution. Right now you have Hamas or the Alibaba and the 40 Thieves in the West Bank, which is the Palestinian Authority. They are incompatible, they are incapable, they are corrupt, and they cannot lead the way. There has to be a new Palestine. So there has to be a new, even the so-called September 22nd declaration. By the way, many countries already support the two-state solution, even before this declaration that's going to happen on September 22nd. I think it's just symbolic. People do it, many countries are doing it for their domestic problems, and I understand that. But it's not going to change anything on the ground. On the contrary, with a government like the government that you have right now in Israel, you might have repercussions of unilateral recognition of the West Bank as Judea and Samaria. So it might lead things to even worse situations. When people ask me about the two-state solution, I reaffirm by saying I believe in the right of the Palestinians to live in dignity side by side with their Israeli neighbors. Two-state solution is not a priority right now. It's not a priority. The priority is finding a Palestinian leadership that is willing to live in peace with Israel. Because you had Israeli leadership that is willing to, and I had the honor of meeting some Israeli prime ministers like Yair Lapid, who believed in the two-state solution. Not anymore. After October 7th, the consensus in Israel is no two-state solutions. Unfortunately, because they said there was a de facto state, look what happened. And the one in the West Bank, or Yehuda V'Shomron, is incapable of controlling even the terrorists there. Those who those who opened fire a week ago to an Israeli bus, they came from the West Bank. So where is the PA? So it's not a priority. But I keep affirming, saying that the Palestinians deserve to live in dignity side by side with their Israelis, because I don't want the answers to show that you have no empathy towards the Palestinians at all. No, of course, but not this time to have a state. And it's not going to happen. So what's going to happen after the vote? Nothing.
What Loay just said about living in dignity alongside, that's complicated. Two-state solution just falls off your tongue. It's alliterative. It sounds like a solution. In that expression, you can solve the problem. But there was this TV personality, Senuensis, who used to say in a little puppet, easy for you, difficult for me. If there's a problem with that two-state solution, it's only the Israelis will pay for it with blood and treasure and their lives. So they understand that this is no longer a solution for them. How we get to the dignity of the Palestinians, I agree totally with Loay, find somebody who actually can lead them to a peaceful coexistence. As far as the existence of the State of Israel, why is that questioned when 22 Arab countries are not questioned? Their legitimacy, their laws derive from the Quran. In fact, the UN issued the Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, and they listed, it was like the American Bill of Rights. Not to be outdone, there is the Cairo Declaration of Human Rights. in 1960. And that lists all those same rights, except after every one of the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, assembly, life, liberty, all of those have an appendage, except if it conflicts with the principles of Sharia law, which actually destroys that. The biggest difference there is Israel focuses on human rights and dignity for humans. Most of the emphasis of Islam is human responsibilities or obligations to Allah in a more classic sense.
But I want to say that what Hamas gives is the radical interpretations of Islam, not the interpretations of so many moderate Muslims who reject Hamas. And by the way, Hamas is absolutely banned in Saudi, in the UAE, and the Muslim Brotherhood, which harbors Hamas, is also banned in so many moderate Islamic countries because they've seen what they are bringing to their people. Imagine one day we are ruled by people like this guy who said, I don't care about the Palestinians, it's the responsibility of the UN. Imagine. You wouldn't have beautiful countries or beautiful cities in our region.
We have a couple more questions.
Not a question, it's not a question, but you said a lot of things that were really good, but I was like, by the time I picked up my camera, you were done. So I'm just wondering for the people who are filming this, if there is a way to just send us like, we all live in a social media world, and
Yeah, I'll take when I'll take the video, I'll make lots of shorts.
yeah, that's what I'm asking for, because that would be really helpful. Or just get up and you just say this right now,
No.
and I'll put it on my feed. But
We will do
that's
it.
just a little comment. Those shorts would be.
We have another
We'll make sure
question
you get
here.
to all the video. Quick question.
And we have a question here from the lady.
Okay, let me get teacher.
After you, and then you.
Hello. I teach mostly, I work with K to 4 students, and I would say I only faced really one uncomfortable situation in my teaching role since October 7th. We were using a website where you answer questions, and this website donates free grains of rice to people who are hungry in the world. And all of a sudden, as the kids were engaged in it, I had a student of mine from Morocco, very, very smart, a wonderful student. He just kind of blurted out, Israel is a horrible country, and they are starving all the people in Gaza. So we should be giving these grains of rice to those people. So I didn't know what to do with that.
I'll tell you. Playbook. Those who say Israel is a terrible country, I always love to remind them what Israel gave the world. And this student should be reminded what Israel gave the world. The most used navigational app in Saudi Arabia comes from Israel. It's called Waze. Israel gave the world cherry tomatoes, USB, ICQ, agricultural technology that benefited the world. Israel gave the world Filicam. Israel gave the world lots of innovation because it believes in the advancement of human life. And also Israel, very important to say, that it contributes to scientific research and AI and high tech more than any other country in the Middle East. So I would rebuttal by showing him what Israel gave to humanity. It's very important for this to be highlighted. Many people who use Waze in Saudi Arabia and curse Israel, they forgot that without Israel, they wouldn't be using Waze.
And now in the back, I saw a question from one of our students. Is he still here?
Where'd he go? He just stepped out.
You can look at the sign about the Weizmann Institute that was founded in 1934 with the notion to bring science and technology to make the world a better place for everybody.
And unfortunately, it was hit in the last 12-day war.
Yeah,
It was
bombed, yeah.
It was bombed.
Any other questions?
I'm just wondering if there are many people in your community who share your views on Jews in Israel, or are you an anomaly? And
A growing number of peaceful voices.
I'm also wondering how the shift in your own belief system impacted your interpersonal relationships with friends and family.
With family, it's fine. with my mother, that my dad passed away, with my mom, and with my direct family members. It's fine because when they saw that when I came back from France that I had to go through a very long process of questioning and answering, so they know that it's genuine, so they are so good with me, very supportive of what I do, but they are very worried about my safety, which is something I understand. My friends, yeah, you lost friends, but you gained so many friends as well. And I always tell to those who want to leave, you are more than welcome to come back. I don't take it personal. And I know why you're so angry, why you're so charged. When I was young, I used to think the same way about Israel, about the Jews, and about so many things, but you are more than welcome to have a debate or to have a talk. So, yes, you lose friends, but you gain more friends. Family members, most of my family members are fine with what I say. They don't agree with it, but they know that it comes from conviction and perseverance, so they understand. So those friends I lost, I have zero regrets losing someone because of my beliefs. And what are my beliefs? To annihilate the Palestinians? To annihilate the nation of the Palestinians? No, I want to have a Middle East where Israel is fully integrated with its neighbors, where Jews, Muslims, Christians, and people of different faith live and coexist together, to have a Middle East that surpasses Europe in its good being. This is what I want. It's a good cause. But those who oppose this, who don't really want Israel to exist, and with all due respect, and I have to tell them, I have to remind them that we are 1.8 billion Muslims, named after, most of us are named after Jewish prophets, kings, and heroes. If Israel is gone, the legitimacy of your faith is totally gone. Like in the Netherlands, when I meet a friend, or when I meet someone, not a friend, when I meet someone who says Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine and you are a traitor. I said, okay, you know what? What's your name, my friend? My name is Dawood. Dawood, which is Arabic for David.
David.
Said, you know who the traitor is? You are the traitor for the person you were named after. Because the person you're named after proclaimed Jerusalem as the capital of the kingdom of Israel. And now you're saying otherwise. Knowledge is power.
And now a question from a local 9th grade student.
Discretionarily, upon my personal belief, I find it very important that we have discussions and that we talk within people that have polar opposites when it comes to their ideological dichotomies or their juxtapositions and ideologies. And I personally believe that diplomacy is one of the very few of ways that people can strike peace between two opposing parties. My question is, how is Israel, or not even outside of Israel, how is someone supposed to strike diplomacy and discussion with those who refuse to be enacted by it? And on top of that, just a very small question, which was more of a personal experience. I had a social studies teacher come up to me, and I asked him I didn't really ask him what his thoughts and opinions were, but I had a discussion nonetheless about the strikes that Israel led upon Qatar when they had the Hamas leader, I believe it was Khaled al-Khaya, and some other person, I can't remember his name at the moment, I'm sure I can get back to it some other time, in the capital. There was the strike, and my social studies teacher brought up that this showed that Israel is now the aggressor. Israel doesn't want these peace talks happening, and that's why they bombed the place. So what would your discretionary belief be towards that happening?
I think this will be our last question. It's a good one. There you go.
So for the part of those who don't want to engage, do not engage with those who don't want to engage. I agree with you. There has to be lots of conversations happening. But if someone doesn't want to listen, you're not going to force them to listen. And I believe that's okay. Give them their space. If they want to listen, be more than open and happy to debate and have discussions. But those who don't want to listen, it's a waste of time. And now, I want to say one thing, especially when this war is ongoing, it's so tough to build meaningful conversations around the corner, because there are many people are emotional, and many people are, you know what's happening, and they don't really get the Middle East so well like Middle Easterns. So this is one. Two, the strike on Qatar is a strike I absolutely think it was a bad idea. You know why? I tell you why. You know, I'm a very pro-peace with Israel. I believe in Israel's right to exist. But if you want to bomb if you're saying that because they're saying that, well, it's long overdue, they are not serious about it, they are very, how to say this, they've dragged us a long way, that's fine. Say it out loud, say we're not going to deal with them, but don't bomb them. It sent a very wrong message. I believe that the current government is, even though I'm saying it out loud, I'm a big fan of Benjamin Netanyahu. I believe Benjamin Netanyahu has endured what no other prime minister would endure, honestly speaking. Yeah, with this war, he endured a lot. But some of his cabinet members, they make terrible mistakes. Some of his statements in the government, like for example, one of his cabinet members went to a solitary confinement of Marwan Barghouthi, and he kept threatening him. Marwan Barghouthi participated in suicide bombings in school buses in 2002. Put him on trial. Prosecute him, but do not humiliate him. What is the point of going into a solitary confinement of a terrorist and humiliate him in front of everyone just because you want to get revenge out of your chest? Doesn't help anything. And this operation was absolutely rejected. And there were other by the way, there were other operations by the IDF that even Bibi himself explained that it was a mistake. Wars have lots of mistakes. So the operation in Qatar, I wouldn't agree with bombing even if they are the most terrible negotiators. I would say, you know what, I'm not going to deal with them anymore. Khalas, let's stop it there. But I wouldn't just send high-level F-35 jets to bomb them in Qatar, which is a Gulf state. At the end of the day, it's a Gulf state and it's part of the... by the way, I said out loud, I have two problems with Qatar. The first one is Al Jazeera. The second one is harboring Hamas. But that doesn't mean that I support bombing the negotiators while there is at least some sort of a sense of a hope for negotiations. And I know that they are stalling, but I wouldn't bomb them.
And here Loay and I will agree to disagree as we close. I think in its current situation, Israel was sending a message. In response to your question, what do you do when someone refuses to engage with you? You simply ask them, what are you afraid of? I'm not going to hurt you. I might change your opinion. I might give you some new information. I might make you actually think, but I'm not going to hurt you. I think we're out of time for right now. But what do we have next? Briana Wu. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to infringe on Briana's territory. So, please, stand up a little bit, just stretch, and now Briana Wu.